we have anybody here that would like to speak for the third time? Since nobody wants to speak in present, do we have anybody on Zoom? Nobody on Zoom? So we'll close public comments. We move on to our meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Dave,
So move to approve.
okay, second.
I don't understand. Are you once again assigning who does motions?
I didn't see your hand up, and so I didn't
I said
know.
I'd like to move to approve. I was just curious. Are we assigning motions today?
She moved right away.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't hear. Thank you, Betsy.
Mhm.
You took a second on that, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay, we're on item 3. And item 3.
Did we vote on that?
Yes, you can. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I
Okay, aye, 5. We have, for item 3, we have an introduction, or Shelley
Try.
Schrei. I think I met you yesterday.
That was Penny. There's 2 of us.
Oh.
We cause a lot of confusion. The same floor.
Same floor,
Yes.
okay. Let's hear from you.
I'm Shelley. I started in the purchasing department about 3 weeks ago, training with Laura. Prior to that, I was in our IT department, our finance department, and our child support department. My background in purchasing is in the private sector, so I'm now learning all the regulations around public buying.
Bidding, and that sort of thing.
Welcome to our finance committee.
Thank you.
Laura's last day was yesterday. Laura's with us 20 some years, I think. Exactly.
32.
32 altogether,
Mhm.
20 some in that position. And a lot of experience will be greatly missed, but very glad to have Shelley able to move up from IT with a lot of enthusiasm and relevant work, learning quickly, learning a lot of new things. We are going to be working on our purchasing policies and procedures, which are something that according to our policy, we're supposed to review with this committee every year, and I don't think we've done it in the 10 years I've been here. So there are some outdated rules that we're going to need to be updating. And I think it's a good time to start working on that. So don't know what the timetable will be exactly, but just wanted to introduce you to Shelley and let you know that we're going to be, looking at bringing some of those policies back to the committee over whatever period of time it may take to really evaluate.
It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Take care. Item 4 has to do with our general fund balances and our portfolio analysis. We've got Paul here.
Okay, so the first thing is the general fund balance. Right now, we have it as of 12/31 of 2021. For the next meeting, I'm gonna try to update everything as of 3/31/2023. If not, 4/30 of 2023, depending on if the auditors finally are done and leave us alone for a while. So, the general fund balance at the end of 12/21 of 23 or 22 was 51,420,000. So that also includes, for many of you that know, we've moved 22 million of the ARPA funds into the general fund at the end of 2022. So on January 1st of 2023, that came out of the general fund. So this is showing as of 12/31 of 2023, but it's gonna go down by 22 million on 1/1 of 2023. So it's already gone down by 22 million because that is going into the special revenue fund called the Spirit Fund. So we'll have an update on the general fund and ARPA, the Spirit Fund at the next meeting, hopefully through March 31st, 2023.
the spirit fund is located within the general fund, that's correct?
It is a special revenue fund, so it's a designated general fund, unlike a unassigned general fund. So when it rolls up in the financial statement for the ACFR, now it's called instead of CAFR, it'll roll up into the general fund for the auditors. But it is in a special revenue fund, so it's designated separate than the unassigned general fund. So I know this wasn't asked for, but the second grouping of pages, if nobody had questions, now they're on the general fund. This is a listing of the open capital projects. Oh,
Can I
yes,
just ask you a quick question on that? So we had to move it into like a designated fund because of how we switched it over from ARPA over. Was it necessary, or is it just so that we're in the spirit of how we want to,
we could have left it, we could have left, okay,
No, just because that's how we report to our fund.
okay,
To the
okay,
Treasury Department.
that's what.
So,
makes sense.
so in our report, we
Mhm.
designated, I have to make quarterly reports to the Treasury Department, how we're using the ARPA money, all the projects, how the funds have been used and so forth. So I've reported that amount of money was used as authorized by county board resolution
Mhm.
to essentially pay for salaries in the sheriff's department and other departments that weren't otherwise funded through outside
Right.
revenue sources. So we've already reported that money is being used to pay salaries, which were paid out of the general fund. That's why that money had to be moved into the general fund to document that we had used the money
Yeah.
to pay those salaries. Now, a dollar's a dollar, so it doesn't really matter, where, it's not like we're moving around cash or gold specie. So just moving that money in was necessary to show that we had used it to pay those salaries. And that's allowable under the ARPA rules as general government services may be paid for once we identify the ARPA money as a replacement of lost revenue.
Right, lost revenue, right.
So, but in order to tick all the boxes for the Treasury Department, we had to move money into the general fund because then it was used to pay for those salaries.
The losses or what have you, yeah.
Creating that same surplus because of
Mhm.
course we had already used money in
Spend
the
it,
general fund.
yeah,
So it just increases that fund balance, which we then take out again and isolate it as the spirit fund in order to track exactly what we used it for.
and it goes into the other fund on 1/1 of 24.
23.
it happened already,
Oh, okay, this is
I
our,
misspoke one time. He said 12/31/23 when he should have said 22.
okay, gotcha, okay, now I'm good, I am good now,
It
okay,
went
that makes
in,
so much
it
sense
went
to
out.
me, so thank you guys for taking the time.
to go back to your, I think your question was, did it have to be in the special revenue spirit fund? No. It could have went into the unassigned general fund per the regulations and law.
It
The
just
county
makes it
executive
easier,
did not want to do that.
okay,
He asked the board and wanted to create the ARPA commission to have more monetary or more oversight and transparency of them funds.
transparency, so it goes
That
into a
was,
separate
it
fund.
went into a
Okay.
separate fund to be monitored.
Okay.
So that it could be separate and monitored.
Right,
Right.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
a nice
I just wanted to
transparency.
let you know that.
Yeah, that
it
makes-
Did not have to be.
Yeah,
for the
okay,
regulation.
did not have to be, but we did it for transparency purposes, okay, thank you so much.
So capital projects, this is at the 12/31 of 2022. I'm not gonna go through all of them. I basically just wanted to give an update with. These are the ones that were open as of 12/31/2022. We did open some more during the year so far, but the ones in yellow are the ones that we have closed. At the end of 2022 and have, if they're enterprise, well, they're capitalized one way or the other. Highway, airport, and facilities were the main projects that were closed. Some of these extended over like a 6-year period with the taxiways for the airport, go back to 2017. For the taxi Alpha, 2 parts, they had on that one.
Are any of these that you closed waiting billing?
No,
So
they've
you,
all been, there is, I shouldn't say no, there are a little bit left for the airport, for the state.
Yeah.
State government, federal. About $15,000, but it was deemed as a $12 million project, 15,000 was in materials, so we wanted to close it since it was open since 2017.
Okay, so we're just waiting for them to catch up. Is that-
We were waiting for them to give us the documentation. They gave us the documentation in April. So we pushed to get that. They gave it to us except for the $15,000 off one project. And they don't think they're gonna end up, they're waiting on to see if the vendor's gonna bill. Cause it's 15,000 open on the contract, but it's not really outstanding. It's just open. There is no invoice due. So they're waiting to make sure.
Okay.
So that is the capital projects. And like I said, we'll have an update for the ones that we have opened in 2023 next week. Okay, so I scrambled to try to throw together the investment portfolio because I did a lot of. The last page is not really readable, it's just for just so you can see the
I thought
graph.
we were gonna make it readable from the last meeting, it wasn't readable.
Well. This is more of a graph to show you is the one I'm referencing to. If. The investment portfolio all needs to be bigger, I can make it bigger print and more pages. And maybe delete a couple columns that are unnecessary. And just include dollar amounts if that's preferable.
This
So-
is better than the one we had before.
Right, this is basically a listing of the investments that. A lot of these were done before I got here, the ones on the back, the ones that are highlighted in yellow. Are the ones that I have added since March. So in March and April, I have added. Basically $22 million of investments. So some of that is the money that I cashed out some CDs. I think I mentioned that last time about. $12 million worth of CDs I cashed out. They were at about a 0.6%. And this is showing that we are reinvesting that 14 million along with other things that are coming due. I'm still trying to scramble and make sure I can try to get more money invested. Which brings me to the last graph page, this one. Which what I'm trying to do is we see all them little low yellow lines. Them are the ones I'm trying to bring up and I'm sending out to brokers and banks to say, I specifically want CDs, municipal bonds or treasuries in that period of time to be able to bring up my cash flow so it's more consistent. Some of these were done previously. There's nothing I can do about them. I can't cash them out because when we booked the year end, we had about a $9 million unrealized gain. Or loss, I should say. I wish it was a gain. It was unrealized loss, but it's not a loss unless we would cash them in. So if we wait till maturity, there's gonna be no loss. So these are the ones that already were in. So I'm trying to fill all the little holes in our cash flow.
Is that, what's the time period, is that?
It goes from 2023, the ending is 2028. And this one I printed like at 840, 855.
Is there any way you could actually put the dividend rate on these?
Yes, I can do that for you.
I mean, I'd just be curious to see if it's going up or down, so we know the trend.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they were, right now, I'm getting CDs right now are still paying the best. I'm getting anywhere between 4.8 and 5.2% on CDs, and that's even some of them are going up 3, 4, 5 years. It's very tough to try to find something that's going out 7 years. I just ran into a couple of municipal bonds for Des Moines, Iowa. I bought, I think $6 million. They had 2 offerings. The county bought $6 million of Iowa bonds that go out 27, 28, 29, and 30. So I'm starting to see some of them coming in. But like I said, I'm trying to fill the early holes and then try to get this out. I can go out 7 years for the authority I have, so I can't go any further than 7. So I'm trying when I'm getting to May, I'm trying to add out 7 years from May.
So in other words, Apple, Chevron, Exxon, Microsoft, Walmart, those are all
corporate bonds?
Then were corporate bonds that were bought previously, yes. Yep. They are all AA rated, so they were in investment policy, yes. I have not bought any private corporate bonds at this point. I don't feel comfortable with that. I'm not real comfortable with some of the banks either, so.
Well, don't we have bylaws saying what you can invest in and
Yeah.
can't invest in?
But there is stuff that I can do up to I can do up to 3 million uncollateralized. I'm trying not to do anything that's not insured. So I'm trying to make sure I'm doing, when you're investing $250,000 at a time, because that's what a CD is. And you have to make sure you don't double buy that CD, because I've got 4 or 5 brokers sending me the same CD. So I've got to make sure I don't buy that same CD with 2 different brokers. So yes, we are, I'm trying to manage that. And as treasuries are only paying like 3.6% right now. So the market's just weird.
Good.
And I noticed one of the banks on here, one that is not doing very well. Am I wrong? Did I see one
Which
on
one?
there? Was it First Federal? No, is that the one?
No, there was federal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's gotta be,
All of these are on what we call Veribank, which we use as a
a verification. type of thing.
verification,
Okay,
and they let us know if somebody's rating has dropped. So when we.
but sometimes it doesn't happen until like the day, I mean,
Right.
that's what happened with the newest one, right?
Right,
But I mean, that's why you're doing 250,000, right?
Well, all
Because
this
that's the FDIC. type of
FDIC is up to 250,000, the state is up to another 400,000, so that's 650,000 that's insured. The policy says I can go up to 3 million, but that leaves 2.3 uncollateralized. We do have a lot of banks that are giving us letters of credit, but they're only as good as the bank is strong.
Yeah,
So, I'm trying to avoid getting too high. I'm trying not to use that. I'm trying to stay under that 650.
Being conservative.
yeah.
Being conservative, but trying to get the best interest I can, yeah. So it might be a whole lot of
Good job.
CDs
Oh my
instead
goodness.
of 6 million in a bond, it might be 36 CDs or something.
Thank you for doing that, because I think that's cool.
I have a question. So are we investing just in the state of Wisconsin?
No,
banks,
I just did an Iowa bond that invested in, so we can do the
And there's
states
nothing
that,
in our bylaws that state we're supposed to be doing stuff with our local banks?
it says that we have to stay within the states that touch us, for bonding. And CDs have to be insured up to, 250.
Any other questions? Okay. Let's close this report. And set it aside. We don't approve, disapprove. Okay. The next thing on the agenda is item 5, Doug hearing. And this is a budget transfer, $24,000. And it has to do with a lead paint analyzer purchase.
Morning. I'm requesting that we are able to move money from our operations budget to our capital budget to purchase a lead paint analyzer. The purchase is over 5,000, so it's considered a capital expenditure. And I didn't budget for that in capital expenditure, so I would just like to move the funds from operations to capital to purchase the device.
Let's see.
So was that to go into private homes and investigate?
Yeah, the paint analyzer allows us to see how much lead is in paint and other substrate coverings to determine whether or not they would qualify for abatement or need to be abated if they're defective.
Okay. Have you used these before?
Yes, well, I personally, I've used many of them in former roles. We've used those devices here. We actually have one on loan from the state right now. It's it performs the same function, it's slightly different in how it works, but the principle is to generate X-rays to excite the atoms to read, how much, the lead is there. The one we have on loan right now uses a radioactive source. The newer generation ones, use like a rhodium bulb that, has like a 5-year warranty. It doesn't require resourcing. The old ones required a new radioactive source like every 18 months in order to, because the half-life of the radioactive materials, is short. And so it'll be faster operating. It'll be consistent in how it operates. It'll be less expensive to maintain, and right now we don't even own one. We just borrow one.
Any questions?
You have permission, you have to ask permission to go into private homes, or how are you going to?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. So we do. Generally, yes. If we are made aware of a child that is lead poisoned, we will definitely, visit with the family, contact the property owner, request to do an inspection on those premises ahead of time. With that, we can also offer lead abatement funds and pay for the remediation, which is great. If it was a circumstance where a child was being lead poisoned, and we were denied access to that dwelling, and we felt that there was an imminent threat, then we might proceed and ask for an inspection warrant in order to continue that work, but we've never had to do that.
I see a question from you.
I was gonna move.
You moving for it?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I moved for the budget transfer for the paint and the light purchase.
Second down here at Dave. Would you like to vote?
I,
Aye. We have 5-0. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Item 6 is Mr. Hibbert. And we have item 7 with Mr. Hibbert as well.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Regarding item number 6, this is regarding adjustments to the unclassified positions pay schedule. If you recall, back in December, we last reviewed this, and due to some market issues and where our pay grades were at the time, we had moved some of the Parkview pay amounts to specific points within the pay grades. So for instance, the casual call RNs at the time, we were paying the maximum of the pay grade, which at the time was $38.52. That was the amount that they felt necessary in order to attract and retain casual call RNs. Since this got approved in December, of course, we had the changes with the compensation study, changes to pay grades. Now the maximum of that pay grade for an RN is $46.85, which they still feel comfortable that the $38.52 that they had been paying is in line with not only what they can, hire and keep casual calls at, but they also want to be cognizant of the internal employees who aren't casual call. They don't want to offer an incentive for someone who's, say, a low part-time status, giving that up so that they can go to the maximum pay rate. So because of the changes that were approved with the compensation schedule, just looking to change a few of those. You'll see that on the highlighted changes, like casual call RN, instead of maximum grade, we'd be changing that from the minimum to $38.52, which had been the previous maximum. The reason why they want to do that is so that number one, there can be a hiring range, and also by keeping it at $38.52, which is slightly above the current control point, we don't have to roll anyone's pay backwards. So if these changes are approved, it kind of realigns then our unclassified positions with the new compensation schedule. It doesn't result in any increases directly for any of the current employees, but it also, doesn't roll back anyone's pay.
I'll move to approve it.
Okay. That's it, second. That's the unclassified positions pay schedule. Okay.
Right.
We want to vote on that?
You got a question,
Okay. Don?
the $68 per hour. It's like. Is that like time and a half? Is that pretty much? You're
Yeah.
working nights or the weekend, you're getting time and a half?
Right, it's close to the, I mean, obviously every nurse's pay will be slightly different, but yes, it's in that ballpark of time and a half, and it puts it in alignment with the incentive amount that they're allowed to offer. So the idea was it keeps those amounts consistent.
So, like, if they work the weekend days. What would they get?
Well, they would get their normal rate of pay, so this would just be in excess of their salaried hours. So it's in essence the incentive.
So if their regular. Schedule is nights, what would they get? If they're regular,
They'll get their regular pay. This would be in essence if
Right.
the salaried nurses pick up additional shifts.
I got her.
I guess, what was the reasoning? There was no change in solid waste, several of them.
That's for the next. That's item 7.
Yeah, that's,
I guess I'd just be curious with the seasonals, did the $15 help? Are we gonna get a full staff of seasonals? 'Cause they're essential for this company to run to get the lawn mowed and.
We have a lot more seasonals lined up so far this year. That increase to 15 has helped significantly.
I know, I think Outagamie is paying 20. So it's just, if we can't get them in the future, we may have to increase.
Absolutely, yeah.
these are unclassified, these are not in the classifications that we have for.
Correct, they would be temporary, casual.
Temporary, these are all temporary people.
Yeah, the seasonals were unclassified.
Do any of these have an incentive program applied to them in some way? It's not called out here.
I believe some of the casual positions at Parkview, if they've picked up a minimum number of hours, may qualify for certain incentives.
So is that what you've been harping on both Parkfields? So does that meet?
Yeah, it'll help. I mean, Parkview's only got 98 residents and it's 165 bed nursing home. We can't get any staff. We need to basically offer that service to, we have 35 people on a waiting list. We have no workers to serve them. And that's our job as, you know.
I understand, but I'm just saying, does this,
That will help.
would it help you?
That will help. I mean, we're like 62 CNAs and hospitality aides short. We really need hospitality aides and CNAs so that we can get the residents back up, so those 35 people can get in there.
Any other questions? Can we vote?
I,
Aye, 5-0. Let's move on to the reclassification request. Item 7.
All right, well, as you may remember from last year, at the May meeting each year, this committee reviews any reclassification requests. We have a process that department heads can submit requests to review positions in their department and either advocate that they increase to a higher pay grade or to a lower pay grade based on a variety of factors. On one hand, this year, we may have expected there to be few, if any, reclassification requests, because obviously we just completed a compensation study, which that was one of the main purposes, is aligning our positions with market. The last time we did a compensation study, we had the opportunity, when department heads meet with the consultant, there's various discussions that occur. And then there's follow-up where, based on those discussions, maybe a department head can provide additional information, ask further questions, and it's that whole process of kind of landing ultimately at the recommendation that the consultant presents. This year, because of the timeline we were trying to make, the consultant still met with all the department heads, still had those same discussions. But we didn't have as much time between that process, approval, implementation. It would have extended the entire study out farther. So really the idea had been, let's utilize this reclassification opportunity that we knew was coming up in May to kind of facilitate some of those discussions. So that's what happened. And that's why we do have reclassification requests, even though we just finished the compensation study. So I received 15 requests from departments, and these were reviewed primarily by the consultant again, because again, this is her bailiwick of, you know, what she does. And instead of us just coming in and deciding, you know, something independently of what she had just evaluated and suggested, why not go back to the consultant and get her opinion? So she reviewed these requests along with all the paperwork that had been submitted, and I created then the summary and recommendations chart that's before you. A majority of the positions, she had recommended that we go with the requested grade. But then you'll see that we had 5 positions, 3 in human services, 2 at solid waste, for a variety of reasons that she recommends no change. And then there were 3 requests, 1 from planning and zoning and 2 from public health, where she kind of split the difference on, recognizing that, you know, it could be appropriate to move them up a grade, but not as high as what had been requested. The ones that Dave was asking before, specifically about solid waste. Solid waste associate, I know one of the challenges that they've communicated with that position is it does work weekends. It is in that weekend rotation, can be difficult to hire and retain for that. And to that specific item, the consultant had said that that's not so much, she didn't feel that was as much of a pay grade issue as far as is the position in the appropriate grade. It's more of an issue of, can we address things like weekend or shift hours by having either some type of shift weekend differential, doing some type of stipend, doing something to enhance for that specific need, rather than does the position itself warrant being in a higher grade. So that really was her recommendation for that particular one. Equipment operator 2 at solid waste, based on the numbers that she had from a market within the study, didn't feel that it warranted a pay grade change. And one of the things, because I know, you know, I've talked with Director Raby about this, you know, they will look, as they should, at what the other 2 counties in their consortium pay, you know, Brown and Outagamie. But we can't look solely at that, because we also have our internal comparables. So the positions that we have in, say, grade 64 and are they comparable that way? And the other thing we look at is, where do we have difficulty hiring and filling? So for instance, solid waste, they have had openings for their equipment operators, but we generally can fill those fairly quickly. And a lot of times we'll fill those internally, you know, mainly from highway department. we'll end up with the difficulty in recruiting is actually for the highway department. And so that's one of the reasons why we in essence, feel that there's that justification, keeping the highway operators in the grade they're in, because that's really the position that's difficult to recruit for. And I've had similar conversations. We have some positions like that in other departments where it's a very similar position, at least title wise, but in one department, it may be in a different pay grade, a higher pay grade than another. And again, some of that gets back to, it's the situation I'm referring to. We have RNs both in public health as well as Parkview, and they're in different pay grades. Parkview is in a higher pay grade. Public health, they're in a lower pay grade. They don't get weekend and shift differentials and things like that. But we don't have difficulty or as much difficulty recruiting and retaining nurses in public health. But to Supervisor Binder's point before, I mean, it's been a challenge hiring and keeping staff at Parkview. That's one of those factors that helps us to justify having those RNs in a different pay grade, as well as offering some of those incentives like shifts and differentials. So certainly if the committee has any questions, other questions, I'm happy to try to answer those. I've also listed an approximate cost estimate if these were approved, because we would have, again, it's not the departments or necessarily an employee's fault per se that we would make these decisions now versus had we had the time before the whole board had approved the study. The idea would be that we would treat these employees, if approved, we'd look at their slotting again in these grades, because that's what we had done for all the other employees through the study.
Also move to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
I have a. Okay, I'll release them.
Yeah, we've got questions from several of us. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
My question is, the next time we hire a consultant, we should tell them in their contract that they should apply, they should come and report to the county board in person. That's baloney of all the money we paid her, and she sits back there like a queen and doesn't have to come. I realize she made it come and talk to you, but I think they should have to report to the board. My opinion.
And my only comment is that certainly was the intent, and she had the last time, which is here nor there, but the reason why she wasn't.
I understand all that,
because
but
of a
I'm just
medical
saying, 2 times is, one time is okay, but then the second time isn't okay. My opinion.
So noted.
You have something done? I'm looking at this request sheet, the form that you made out, and I kind of judged from that, some of these were a little excessive, down here at the environmental health manager, going from a 68 to a 70 rather than going a 69. I go along with this sheet on the recommended grades. And I went back through I took the time to go back and check to see how much difference, and where in the grades as far as the control point and beyond, it was going to make big differences. I got to go along with your recommendations. I don't go along with the requests. Okay, I would vote for any recommendation that Mark has set up here. And the no changes, leave them be, no changes. But I don't go along with the requested grades at all.
See, I think that you would have to serve on that committee to see how that environmentalist has to work with the DNR and all the hard job they have to do. I think that it's appropriate. There again, my opinion.
So on each one of these, you have different thoughts from the recommended.
I understand, I'm just talking about the one at the present time.
The environmental health manager. Right. Anybody else? Steve, you're okay with it?
We paid her to do a job, she, what she recommends, I'll take her advice.
Specialists.
Thank you.
We don't know what all these people do when they do, and they did the work, and we have to go with it.
Oh. Mark knows what they do with the soil, don't you?
Yeah, and my comment. For all the employees and all these grades, I mean, we certainly understand, and this committee understands too. Our employees do a great job for us, and, if we had an unlimited money tree in the back, we'd all love to increase all the grades and, be not just competitive pay, but the best pay so we can attract. And, we're limited with where we're limited. But even the positions that don't necessarily get an adjustment through this process, it's, no reflection on the great job that the employees do. It's just, again, market comparables, the structure we have. And then again, there will be some hopefully other changes coming down the pipe regarding some of those incentives and stipends and differentials and things like that we can do to try to recognize some of those specialty responsibilities that some of the positions have.
I think that as we approve these and other people see what other people are getting, they'll come out of the woodwork and watch.
Yeah,
They had their window.
yeah, really.
And that's one of the reasons we do this once a year, because we could have this every month otherwise as well.
Do yeah, before you vote, do any of you have any questions as far as the request, as far as, do you favor the request or do you favor the recommended grade change? Which,
Recommended, I'm in favor.
We're voting on the recommended, right? I mean, yeah.
the recommended,
Yeah.
Right,
recommended.
right.
How about you, Dave? Recommended?
Yeah.
Recommended.
Well, I
Yeah,
don't think
that's what we're voting
Okay,
on.
that's what we're voting on.
Yeah, I don't understand
Well,
why we're bringing up a.
Just a second.
request The recommended.
just a second, let me just kind of define that for you. And Dave made the point that he would like to see the environmental health manager get the recommended, not the requested, the recommended, which is 69, not 70. Okay, as far as the grade, I'm saying not the requested, but the recommended, what you're proposing. We don't want to make a mistake and go with the different.
Right.
The different column. here,
Right.
Okay. Just so we have that understood. We want to vote on the recommended.
I,
I,
Aye.
Aye. 5 ayes. Recommended. Thank you. Mark. Adam. Are you there?
Wonderful. How are you guys doing?
That's great.
how are you?
You got 3 items here.
I do.
Yes. You want to start the rundown on item 8?
Yes. Yep.
Please.
So just, I mean, it's in the memo as well, but just, I mean, a little bit of history and the east side of the Sunnyview Expo property, we purchased, 2 purchases, land over there. We call it the Netzer property because it was owned by the Netzer family, about 40 acres. On the southern portion of that along County Y is, the community garden and the old Netzer home. When we purchased the property was before I was, I've been here for 2 years. It was about in 2018. There was a request at one point, potentially for our expo manager to maybe live on their property, and I know that didn't get approved by the board. And then there's transition in 2020, when our director left, and by the time I got on, so this house, it's been in the plan for a while, is kind of my point, and we would like to move forward, with, removing the home. The barn, behind the home is definitely dangerous, hazardous, needs to come down. And then there's a garage and a shed. We were gonna leave the shed, it's a metal shed, we store like our water tank and some equipment in there. And then the garage, removing that. So that would be done by the highway department. We do have to, there's gonna probably most likely asbestos in there, looks like asbestos tiling, so we'll have to have some remediation removal of that. And then we would, to maintain the well that's there, so that way it can be used for the community garden and potential future use, we would want to cover that with a shed and just minimally heat it. So that way we don't have the maintenance of the home any longer, with the amount of staff we have and the amount of other things we have to maintain. And so we're just looking for a budget transfer to complete, the removal and kind of complete the purchase that we did back in 2018.
Is there a right of way on that property to go back behind the Netzer property?
So that is all
Venus-
owned by the
Venus owns
county.
some property behind there?
So we own the farm field or the land behind the home. That was part of the purchase as well. So it kind of wraps.
So,
around-
but there is no right of way for anybody else to go through that property?
Correct. Yeah, the YMCA is kind of, if you can picture the YMCA, there, we're kind of surrounding the YMCA, it's all county.
I move for the resolution to authorize a budget transfer for the Netzer property,
Second.
For the $35,000,
$35,000.
yes. And the second was Betsy, thank you. Like a vote?
I got a comment.
Oh, sorry.
This sounds like an excellent bargain. And where were you when we tore down the barn on Butler? That was just, I wish you would have been here then. I,
Hi.
Aye. 5-0. Okay, item 9.
Item 9, this is a request, we've received few of these requests from my department, Land and Water for DNR. We are applying for a grant with Wisconsin DNR for the Waukau Dam. This is a project that was approved in the capital improvement plan in February. And we are requesting for 50% of construction, which I apologize, the memo did have a typo in it. And then I was on vacation or on training last week, and so I didn't update, but the amount where the resolution was correct. The resolution is saying that we are requesting for $751,815 from Wisconsin DNR for this project. It's a highly competitive grant. The stewardship, Knowles Nelson stewardship grant is statewide, and all projects across the state from Parks and Rec apply for it. So we will typically find out in September. And then similar to what we did with Grumman, depending on the results of the grant, we will come back to the board for a request for construction of projects next year, which is in the capital improvement plan as well.
Perfect. Move to approve this resolution.
second,
Thank you, Don. That typo on the agenda of the last 750, 815 outside funding. Is that correct?
Yeah, because it was in there 750,015, sorry, it crossed my now. It is 751,815. The resolution is correct. I'll correct the memo for the county board.
Please.
Sure. Correct.
We'd like to vote.
Aye.
I 5-0. Thank you on that. Item 10. Yes. Go ahead.
This. There is no.
Mr. Chairman, on item 10, I discussed this for Corporation Council. This item wasn't supposed to be on the PNF agenda. because it doesn't involve any money. And it doesn't involve a budget transfer or receipt of funds. Still does have to go to county board, but it could go based on the action already taken by the Parks and Recreation. So we're going to withdraw that.
It doesn't, it doesn't have to be amended into or brought up at the county board.
It needs to go to county board, but it's already been approved by the Parks and Recreation Committee. That's all that's needed to send it to county board, since it doesn't have any fiscal impact.
Because it's a multi-year agreement and it's still.
Right. All right, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Item 10 is withdrawn. Resolutions, the accommodation are for all three. If you would like to move on that,
I'd like to move to a resolution commendation for Laura Forbes, Mary Jo Redig, and Joy Pappy.
So move second.
thank you, Dave. For vote?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
91 years of experience.
What a three.
What was on? 3 people, 91.
Leave that on.
You can put it in.
Item 12. We've got a claim. Would somebody make a motion?
I'll move to disallow the claim of Chris Schaefer.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Okay, we're down to the next date of our meeting would be June 1st. Do we all have a calendar?
June 1.
June 1. Yep. That's there. Okay,
Move to adjourn.
yes,
Second.
thank you, Dan. Don. So our meeting, we're adjourned.